The alarm woke Commander Ilara Vance from a dreamless sleep. She was on her feet before her eyes fully opened, years of training moving her body while her mind caught up. The red light flashed against the metal walls of her quarters. Something had crossed into human space. Monitoring Station Argus 7 floated at the edge of everything humanity claimed as its own. Beyond it lay the vast darkness between empires, the neutral zones where no flag flew and no law held. Ilara had commanded this station for 3 years. In all that time, she had dealt with smugglers, lost merchant ships, and the occasional probe from curious alien governments. But the alarm that screamed through her quarters now was different. This was a direct incursion. Something had crossed the line. She reached the command center in under 2 minutes. Her officers were already at their stations, their faces lit by the glow of holographic displays. "Report," she said. Lieutenant Park turned from his console. "Single vessel, Commander, small, no shields, no weapons signatures. It crossed the demarcation line 7 minutes ago and has been drifting ever since." Ilara moved to the main display. The ship was barely larger than a shuttle. Its design was old, the curved hull and organic lines unmistakable to anyone who had studied alien vessels. "Valorian," she said. "Yes, Commander, the ship appears to be damaged. Engines are failing. Life support is minimal." The Valorians. Once they had ruled an empire that stretched across 100 star systems. They had been conquerors, warriors, builders of monuments that touched the sky. Humanity had never fought them directly, but the stories were well known. The Valorians had crushed dozens of species beneath their feet. They had built their civilization on the bones of the weak. But that was long ago. The Valorian Empire had been dying for centuries. Their worlds were empty now, their fleets scattered, their people reduced to wanderers and refugees. They posed no threat to anyone. Still, the law was clear. No one crossed into human space without permission. The wars of first contact had taught the galaxy this lesson. Humanity had been young then, new to the stars, seen as easy prey by older and stronger powers. They had learned quickly that kindness was mistaken for weakness. They had learned that the only way to survive was to make the cost of aggression too high to pay. Now, 300 years later, human space was sacred. Other empires asked permission before sending even a diplomatic message across the border. Those who did not ask learned why they should have. "Hail them," Ilara ordered. The communication officer worked his console. Seconds passed. A minute, nothing. "No response, Commander. Either they cannot hear us or they choose not to answer." Ilara studied the drifting ship. Protocol was clear. She should send a warning, then destroy the vessel if it did not turn back. The law allowed no exceptions, but something held her hand. The ship was so small, so helpless. It reminded her of a wounded animal crawling toward a farmhouse, seeking shelter it knew it might not receive. "Prepare a boarding party," she said. "I want to know who is on that ship and why they are here." The shuttle crossed the distance in 20 minutes. Ilara watched through the video feed as her soldiers cut through the airlock. The interior of the Valorian vessel was dark and cold. Emergency lights flickered in the corridors. The air was thin, barely enough to breathe. They found the pilot in the central chamber. He was old. Ilara had seen Valorians before in images and videos from the archives. They were tall beings, their bodies covered in a hard shell that shifted colors with their emotions. This one's shell was cracked and faded. His bioluminescent markings, which should have glowed with inner light, were dim and flickering. He was dying. The soldiers raised their weapons, but the Valorian made no move to resist. He simply looked at the camera with eyes that held centuries of memory. "I am Ketharin," he said. His voice was weak but clear. "I was the High Archivist of the Valorian Empire. I have come to speak with your leaders. What I carry is worth my life. What I bring may save yours." Ilara ordered him brought to the station. The medical team worked to stabilize him, but their efforts could only slow what was already happening. Ketharin's body was shutting down. He had weeks at most, perhaps only days. Whatever had driven him across the border, he had known he would not survive the journey home. Elara sat across from him in the medical bay. Armed guards stood at the door, but she sensed no danger from the ancient being before her, only urgency. "You know the penalty for crossing into our space," she said. "I do." Ketharin's cracked face moved in what might have been a smile. "I also know that your people are not the monsters the galaxy believes them to be. You are survivors. You do what you must to protect your own. I respect this. I am counting on it." "Explain." Ketharin reached into his robes with trembling hands. The guards tensed, but he produced only a small crystal, no larger than a finger. It glowed with soft blue light. "This contains the collected knowledge of my people, 10,000 years of history, science, and secrets. Most of it means nothing now. The Valorian Empire is dust, but there is one secret that matters, one warning that your people must hear." He placed the crystal on the table between them. "My empire is gone, Commander. Not fallen, not conquered. Gone, taken by something we had forgotten to fear. Something so old that even our oldest records speak of it only in whispers. We called it the Silence." Elara felt a chill run through her. What is the Silence? It is not a species. It is not a fleet. It is a pattern, a hunger that moves through the galaxy in cycles, harvesting all intelligent life. It came for my people 3 months ago. Billions of Valorians absorbed in weeks. I watched my world go dark. I watched my family reach toward the sky, their eyes empty, their minds already taken. He leaned forward, his dying light flickering. "The Silence is coming here, Commander. It moves slowly, but it never stops. Your empire stands in its path. In time, it will come for humanity as it came for us." Elara wanted to dismiss his words as the ravings of a dying mind, but something in his voice, in his eyes, told her this was no madness. "Why come to us? Why not warn other powers, the hegemony, the Kreth, anyone?" Ketharin laughed, a dry and painful sound. "Because they would not listen, because they lack the strength. Because in all my years of study, in all the archives of my people, I found only one hope." He pointed a cracked finger at her. "You, humanity, the species that taught the galaxy to fear it. The species that never surrenders, never retreats, never stops fighting." He pushed the crystal toward her. "The archives contain more than warnings, Commander. They contain plans, a defense that my people lacked the resources to build. But you might succeed where we failed. Take me to your leaders. Let me give them this gift. Let humanity be the shield that stops the darkness." Elara looked at the crystal, then at the dying alien before her. "And if we refuse?" Ketharin closed his eyes. "Then the Silence will take you as it took us, and the galaxy will fall into darkness once more, waiting for the next cycle to begin." Outside the station, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere in that darkness, something was moving, something that had devoured empires and would devour more. Elara picked up the crystal. "I will make the call," she said. The United Human Council met in Geneva, in a chamber that had stood for 400 years. Great leaders had walked these halls. Wars had been ended here. The future of humanity had been decided within these walls more times than anyone could count. Admiral Chen Weilin stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by holographic displays that stretched from floor to ceiling. The council members sat in tiered rows above him, their faces grave. Ketharin sat nearby in a special chair designed to support his failing body. Human medical technology had bought him more time, but death still waited for him. He would not see the end of this story. "What you are about to see," Admiral Chen began, "comes from the Valorian archives. Our experts have verified its authenticity. This is not a trick. This is not propaganda. This is the truth." He activated the display. Images filled the chamber. Star maps showing the spread of an ancient darkness. Records of civilizations that had flourished and then vanished without a trace. Genetic data recovered from dead worlds, showing the same pattern repeated across millions of years. The silence had swept through the galaxy 4 times before. Each time, it had taken everything. The pattern is clear, Chen said. Approximately every 200,000 years, the silence emerges from the galactic rim. It moves inward, absorbing any species that has developed faster than light travel. When it is done, it retreats and the cycle begins again. New species arise, new empires are built, and then the silence returns to harvest them all. A council member raised her hand. How does it absorb them? What does that mean? Catherine spoke, his voice carried through speakers so all could hear. It does not kill, it takes. Every mind, every thought, every memory is pulled into something the old records call the convergence. A single vast consciousness made of trillions of stolen souls. Those who are taken do not die. They become part of it. They lose themselves and become something else. The chamber was silent. Chen continued. The Valorian Empire was among the first to fall in this cycle. Their worlds went dark 3 months ago. The silence is now moving deeper into the galaxy. Based on its current path, it will reach the borders of the Kreth Dominion within 2 years. Human space within 5. 5 years, another council member said. That gives us time to prepare, build defenses, strengthen our fleets. No, Chen's voice was flat. Our fleets mean nothing. The silence does not fight, it simply takes. No weapon we possess can harm it. No shield can stop it. Every species that has tried to fight it has failed. The archives are clear on this point. Military force is useless. Fear spread through the chamber like cold water. Then what hope do we have? Chen looked at Catherine, who nodded slowly. The archives contain one other thing, the Admiral said. A theoretical defense, something the Valorians discovered but lacked the resources to build. They called it the Resonance Network. New images appeared on the displays. Schematics for devices unlike anything human engineers had seen before. Complex patterns of energy and matter, designed to create a signal that would spread through subspace itself. The silence exists partially in normal space and partially in subspace, Chen explained. It uses subspace to spread its consciousness, to absorb minds across vast distances. The resonance network would disrupt this ability. It would create a barrier that the silence cannot cross. It would not destroy the enemy, but it would push it back, force it to retreat to the galactic rim. Then we build it, said the council leader. Whatever resources are needed, we will provide them. There is a problem. Chen zoomed the display out, showing a map of the entire galaxy. 17 points glowed red, scattered across thousands of light years. The network requires devices placed at these specific locations. The physics of subspace demands precise positioning. There is no flexibility. These points and only these points will work. He highlighted several of the red dots. 12 of these locations are in neutral space or territory we can access without difficulty, but 5 of them are not. One is deep within the Kreth Dominion. Another is in hegemony territory. A third is in space controlled by the Morphic Collective. These powers are not our allies. Some are our enemies. None of them will permit human ships to enter their space. The council leader frowned. Then we negotiate, we show them the evidence, we explain the threat. We have already tried, Chen said. Our diplomats reached out through back channels. The Kreth dismissed our warnings as a human trick. The hegemony demanded to see the technology first, likely planning to steal it for themselves. The Morphics did not respond at all. None of them believe the silence is real. None of them will let us save them. Silence filled the chamber once more. Catherine laughed softly. The sound drew every eye to him. You humans have a saying, the dying Valorian said. No one crosses human space unasked. I studied your kind before I came here. Your history, your wars, your nature. You are not a species that waits for permission. When something threatens you, you act. You do not ask if it is allowed. You do not care what others think. You take what you need and dare the universe to stop you. He pointed at the map with a trembling hand. The other races of this galaxy have forgotten what you truly are. They remember only your borders, your warnings, your walls. They have forgotten why those walls were built. They have forgotten the war of first contact, when humanity was young and outnumbered and should have been destroyed. They have forgotten that you won that war not because you were stronger, but because you refused to lose. His eyes found Admiral Chen. You cannot ask permission to save the galaxy. You must simply save it, send your ships, cross their borders, deploy the network. Let them hate you for it. Let them call you invaders and criminals. What does it matter? When the silence comes and their worlds remain untouched, they will understand. And if they never forgive you, at least they will be alive to hold their grudge. The council leader stood. What you are suggesting is an act of war, multiple acts of war, against powers that could destroy us if they united against us. Perhaps, Catherine said, or perhaps they will be too busy fighting the silence to notice a few small ships crossing their space. The convergence does not discriminate. It will take them as surely as it will take you. While they are distracted, while they are learning the truth we have tried to tell them, your people can do what must be done. Admiral Chen stepped forward. There is another consideration. Any ship we send on this mission will not be coming back. The distances are too great. The danger is too high. This is a one-way mission. We would be asking our people to sacrifice everything. Then ask for volunteers, Catherine said. In my experience, humanity has never lacked for those willing to die for something greater than themselves. The council debated for hours. Voices were raised. Arguments clashed. Some demanded that humanity focus only on defending its own territory. Others insisted that the threat was too great to ignore. In the end, the vote was taken. Officially, humanity would remain neutral. The council announced new defensive measures along the border, citing unknown spatial disturbances as the reason. No mention was made of the silence or the resonance network. Unofficially, Admiral Chen was given authorization to begin a project that would never appear in any record. A project that would require volunteers willing to disappear forever. A project that would send human ships across forbidden borders, into the heart of enemy territory, on a mission that would save the galaxy or doom it. Chen stood before the chamber after the others had left, looking at the map with its 17 glowing points. 17 missions, 17 ships, 17 crews who would never come home. He began making calls. The prison station orbited a dead moon at the edge of human space. No name marked it on any official map. It held those who had served humanity in ways that could never be acknowledged, people whose actions had been necessary but unforgivable. Marcus Cole had lived here for 6 years. He sat in his cell when the door opened. A woman in an admiral's uniform stood in the corridor, her face familiar from news broadcasts and military briefings. Chen Weilin, one of the most powerful people in human space. "Captain Cole," she said, "walk with me." They moved through empty corridors. Guards stepped aside as they passed, their eyes carefully looking away. 6 years ago, Chen said, you commanded the destroyer Relentless. You were escorting a convoy of civilian ships past a hegemony patrol zone. The hegemony sent a diplomatic vessel to inspect the convoy. Standard procedure. No threat. "I remember," Marcus said. "You fired on that vessel, destroyed it completely, killed 47 hegemony diplomats, nearly started a war." "I remember that too." Chen stopped walking. "Why did you do it?" Marcus met her eyes. Because the hegemony ship was not there to inspect the convoy. Their diplomats were a cover. They had infiltrators on board, soldiers disguised as staff. They were going to board the civilian ships and take hostages. They planned to drag our people back to hegemony space and use them as leverage in trade negotiations. 2,000 civilians, admiral, families, children. You had no proof of this. I had enough, Marcus shrugged. Their captain made a mistake. He transmitted orders to his infiltration team before realizing our communication systems could intercept the signal. I had 6 seconds to make a decision. I made it. And you never explained this at your trial. The evidence would have revealed our ability to break hegemony encryption. That secret was worth more than my freedom. So I stayed quiet and let them put me here. Chen studied him for a long moment. Then she handed him a data pad. I have a mission for you, Captain. Read this. Marcus read. His expression did not change, but something shifted in his eyes. When he finished, he looked up. You want me to lead a suicide mission into Kreth space? The Kreth Dominion, yes. The most dangerous assignment of 17. Your ship will need to cross deeper into hostile territory than any other. Your chances of survival are essentially 0. And if I refuse? You go back to your cell. No consequences, no punishment. This is entirely voluntary. Marcus looked at the data pad again. The schematics for the resonance device. The map showing the exact point where it needed to be placed. The analysis showing what would happen if the mission failed. The silence, he said, it is real. It is real. It has already taken the Valorian Empire. It will take us too if we do nothing. And these devices will stop it. They will push it back, buy us time, perhaps centuries, perhaps forever, we do not know, but it is the only chance we have. Marcus handed the data pad back. When do we leave? The fleet was assembled in secret. 17 ships built in hidden shipyards scattered across human space. They were small vessels, fast and well-armed, but designed above all for stealth. Their hulls were coated with materials that absorbed sensor signals. Their engines ran cold, producing minimal heat signatures. They carried no identification codes, no flags, no markings of any kind. The crews came from everywhere. Soldiers who had grown tired of peacetime patrols. Scientists who wanted their work to mean something. Engineers who had spent their careers building weapons that were never used. Pilots who had always known they were meant for something more. They were told the truth, all of it. Many walked away. No one judged them for it, but enough stayed. Enough believed that some things were worth dying for. Marcus stood before his crew on the day of departure. The ship was called Prometheus. Its crew numbered 42, each one a volunteer who had signed away their identity, their future, and their life. You know why we are here, he said. You know what we are being asked to do. I will not lie to you and tell you that we will survive. We probably will not. The Kreth do not take prisoners. They do not negotiate. If they catch us, they will kill us, if we are lucky. He looked at their faces, young and old, men and women, all of them watching him with steady eyes. I could tell you that we will be heroes, that songs will be sung about us, that history will remember our names, but that would be another lie. Officially, this mission does not exist. We do not exist. Our families have been told that we died in accidents or vanished into the black. There will be no medals, no monuments, no parades. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. So why do it? Why throw away everything for a mission that will never be acknowledged? Marcus pointed toward the viewport, toward the distant stars. Because out there somewhere are children who will never be born if we fail, families who will never exist, futures that will never happen. The silence is coming. It will take everything unless we stop it. Not the politicians, not the diplomats, us. Right here, right now. He lowered his hand. 1,000 years from now, when humanity still exists, when our descendants look up at the stars without fear, we will be the reason why. They will not know our names. They will not know our faces. But they will live because we died. That is our payment. That is our legacy. And for me, that is enough. The crew was silent. Then Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka, a pilot who had flown more combat missions than anyone else on the ship, began to clap. One by one, the others joined her. Marcus nodded. Then let us go save the galaxy. The 17 ships launched over the course of 3 days. each one slipping away from human space through different routes. They maintained communication silence. They traveled alone. They had no support, no backup, no rescue if things went wrong. The Prometheus crossed into neutral territory first, then moved toward the border of the Kreth Dominion. The Kreth were a hive mind, billions of individual bodies sharing a single vast consciousness. They saw humans as vermin, creatures fit only to be consumed. No human ship had ever entered Kreth space and returned. Marcus studied the star maps in his quarters. The journey would take 4 months. 4 months of hiding, running, surviving. 4 months of watching his crew hold themselves together while death waited around every corner. His door chimed. Chief Engineer O'Brien entered, a grizzled man who had served in 3 wars and survived wounds that would have killed anyone less stubborn. "The crew is ready, Captain," he said, "scared but ready." "Good, fear keeps people sharp." O'Brien hesitated. "Can I ask you something, sir?" "Go ahead." "Do you believe it? The silence, the network, all of it. Do you believe this mission will actually save anyone?" Marcus considered the question. "I believe that an old Valorian crossed into human space knowing he would die, just to warn us about something that had destroyed his people. I believe that Admiral Chen is not the kind of person who sends ships on suicide missions for nothing. And I believe that humanity has survived this long because when something threatens us, we fight back, even when the odds are impossible, especially when the odds are impossible." He turned to face his engineer. "So yes, O'Brien, I believe it. And even if I am wrong, I would rather die trying to save the galaxy than live knowing I did nothing." O'Brien smiled. "Good enough for me, sir." The Prometheus flew on, carrying its crew toward the darkness. Behind them, 16 other ships did the same. 16 other captains, 16 other crews, all of them moving toward different targets, different dangers, the same fate. None of them looked back. 3 months into the mission, the Prometheus lost its first crew member. Lieutenant Commander Hayes had been monitoring the sensor array when a Kreth patrol appeared without warning. The aliens used organic ships that did not show up on standard scanners until they were almost on top of you. Hayes had bought the ship precious seconds by manually boosting the sensor range, but the power surge had been detected. The Kreth came hunting. Marcus ordered the ship dark. No engines, no power, nothing but the faint hum of life support as they drifted through an asteroid field, hopping the rocks would hide them. For 6 hours, the Kreth ships circled. Their scanners swept the area again and again. The crew of the Prometheus sat in darkness, barely breathing, listening to the alien signals that filled the radio frequencies. The Kreth did not speak in words. They communicated through patterns of electromagnetic pulses, thoughts shared directly between millions of linked minds. Hayes found them anyway. A Kreth scout had moved into the asteroid field. It was heading directly toward their position. In minutes, it would be close enough to detect them visually. Hayes did not wait for orders. She climbed into a maintenance pod, the smallest craft the ship carried, and launched toward the scout. The pod had no weapons, no shields, nothing but a small engine and a human being with a plan. She flew directly at the Kreth ship. The aliens detected her immediately, their pulses filling with confusion and curiosity. What was this tiny thing? Where had it come from? Hayes had set the pod's reactor to overload. The explosion was small by space combat standards, but it was enough. The Kreth scout was destroyed. More importantly, the other Kreth ships rushed toward the blast site, drawn by the death of their fellow and the mystery of what had happened. The Prometheus slipped away in the confusion. Marcus recorded Hayes in the ship's unofficial log. No one else would ever read it. No one else would ever know her name, but he would remember. They all would. Across the galaxy, the other ships faced their own trials. Defiance, assigned to hegemony territory, was caught in an ambush near a trading outpost. Captain Rodriguez fought a running battle that lasted 2 days. his ship taking hit after hit as they tried to reach their deployment point. When the resonance device finally activated, only 12 crew members remained alive. Rodriguez was not among them. He had stayed at the helm while his surviving people evacuated to the deployment platform, drawing the hegemony ships away until his reactor finally gave out. The Silent Oath infiltrated space controlled by the Morphic Collective. The Morphics were shapeshifters, beings of living metal who could take any form. Captain Reyes discovered too late that 3 of her crew members had been replaced by Morphic spies. They tried to take the ship from within. Reyes made a choice that would haunt her forever. She sealed the compromised sections and vented them to space. The Morphics died. So did 4 of her own people, crew members who had simply been in the wrong place when the shapeshifters revealed themselves. The Silent Oath reached its target. Reyes activated the device herself, then sat alone on her bridge, surrounded by empty chairs, and waited for whatever came next. One by one, the ships reported in through coded bursts too short for enemy detection. Success, success, success. 15 devices activated. 2 ships were lost before they could complete their missions, destroyed by enemies or accidents in the vast spaces between stars. But the network had been designed with room for failure. 15 would be enough. Only the Prometheus remained. Marcus had driven his ship deeper into Kreth space than any human had ever gone. They had used every trick in the book and invented new ones along the way. Decoy drones that mimicked human life signs, false signals that drew the swarm away from their real position, desperate maneuvers through gas clouds and debris fields where even the Kreth feared to follow. Lieutenant Tanaka had died buying them time to pass a blockade. She had volunteered to pilot a shuttle loaded with explosives into a Kreth carrier. Her last transmission was a single word: clear. Chief Engineer O'Brien had given his life at a pursuit gate, one of the massive structures the Kreth used to monitor traffic through their space. The gate needed to be destroyed, but the only way to do it was from inside. O'Brien had stayed behind to manually trigger the detonation, while the Prometheus fled through the collapsing portal. 42 crew members had started this journey, 19 remained, and they had finally reached their destination. The coordinates marked a point in empty space, far from any star or planet. Nothing visible, nothing remarkable, just darkness and silence. But Marcus knew what waited here. The subspace currents that flowed through this region made it the keystone of the entire network. Without a device at this location, the others would fail. Everything they had sacrificed would mean nothing. "Begin deployment," he ordered. His crew worked with quiet efficiency. They had trained for this moment for months. Every movement was precise, every system check thorough. The resonance device unfolded from the Prometheus's cargo bay, its strange geometry catching the starlight in ways that seemed wrong, impossible. That was when the silence found them. It did not arrive on sensors. It did not approach from any direction. One moment there was nothing. The next moment there was something. Marcus felt it first as pressure behind his eyes, then as a whisper at the edge of his thoughts, then as a presence that seemed to fill the entire universe. The viewscreens showed nothing but stars, but every person on the ship knew something was watching them. "You are small." The voice did not come through the speakers. It came from inside their heads. "You are alone. You are far from everything you know. Why do you struggle? Why do you suffer? There is another way." Half the crew fell to their knees. Some wept. Others reached toward the viewscreens, their faces empty, their hands grasping at something only they could see. "Join us. Become part of something greater. You will never be alone again. You will never be afraid. You will never die. Your thoughts will merge with trillions of others. Your memories will become eternal. All you must do is let go." Marcus gripped the arms of his chair, his vision blurred, his thoughts scattered like leaves in a wind. "You have fought so hard, you have lost so much. Rest now. Let the struggle end." For a moment he almost listened. The voice was so gentle, the promise was so beautiful. No more pain, no more loss, no more watching his people die one by one for a cause that might not matter. Then he thought of Hayes climbing into that pod, Tanaka flying toward the carrier, O'Brien staying behind at the gate. All of them had given everything. All of them had trusted him to finish the mission. He would not betray that trust. "Get out of my head," he growled. He forced himself to his feet. Around him, some of the crew were still standing, fighting the voice with everything they had. Others had fallen completely, lost in the silence's embrace. "Anyone still with me, get to your stations. We are finishing this mission." 7 people responded, 7 out of 19, but 7 was enough. They worked frantically, fighting not just the clock but their own minds. The silence pressed harder, its voice growing louder, more insistent. It showed them visions of peace, of unity, of an existence without suffering. Marcus ignored it all. He focused on the device, on the readings, on the sequence that needed to be completed. The Kreth arrived then, finally catching up to their prey. A dozen ships surrounded the Prometheus, their weapons charging. It did not matter. The device was almost ready. "All hands," Marcus said through the ship's comm, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Brace for impact." He grabbed the controls and aimed the Prometheus directly at the deployment zone. The Kreth fired. Alarms screamed. Metal tore. Marcus Cole laughed. He looked at the view screen, at the vast presence he could feel watching him, and raised his middle finger in an ancient human gesture. "Humanity sends its regards," he said. The Prometheus slammed into the deployment zone at full speed. The impact triggered the device's final activation sequence. A pulse of energy rippled outward through subspace. Across the galaxy, 15 other devices resonated in response. The network was complete. The resonance was felt across the galaxy. It was not a sound, not exactly. It was something deeper, something that vibrated through the fabric of space itself. Every species with the ability to sense subspace reported the same thing at the same moment. A wave, a pulse, a barrier forming where none had existed before. The silence, which had been spreading steadily inward from the galactic rim, stopped. For the first time in its countless cycles of harvest, something had blocked its path. The signal the resonance network produced disrupted its ability to reach into minds, to absorb consciousness, to pull living beings into the convergence. It did not retreat immediately. For 3 days, the silence pressed against the barrier, testing it, probing for weaknesses. Scientists across human space watched their instruments with held breath, terrified that the defense would fail. It held. On the 4th day, the silence began to withdraw, slowly at first, then faster. It pulled back to the galactic rim, to the dark spaces between stars where it had waited before. It was not destroyed. Nothing could destroy something so ancient, so vast, but it was stopped. Humanity had given the galaxy something it had never had before. Time. The news spread through encrypted channels first, then through whispered conversations, then through official statements that told only part of the truth. Something had threatened the galaxy. Something had driven it back. The details were classified at the highest levels. But secrets have a way of leaking. Within months, the other powers began to understand what had happened. The Kreth found the wreckage of the Prometheus at the deployment site. They recovered the ship's logs, damaged but partially readable. They learned that a human crew had crossed their entire territory, had sacrificed themselves to activate a device that protected worlds the Kreth controlled. The hegemony discovered similar evidence in their own space. So did the Morphic Collective. So did every power that had hosted one of the network's devices. They had been saved by a species they considered enemies. Saved by ships that had crossed their borders without permission, that had violated their sovereignty, that had done what no one had asked them to do. Saved by humans who never planned to come back. Admiral Chen Weilin received a visit from a Kreth ambassador 1 year after the Prometheus's final transmission. It was the first time in history that the Kreth had sent a diplomatic representative to human space. The hive mind did not typically negotiate with species it considered beneath its notice. The ambassador was a single drone, smaller than most Kreth, chosen because individual humans found large Kreth frightening. It stood in Chen's office and spoke with a voice that carried the weight of billions of linked minds. "We felt your people die in our space," it said. "We tasted their defiance as they fell. They killed many of our drones. They destroyed one of our gates. They caused damage that will take years to repair." Chen remained silent, waiting. "We do not understand your kind," the ambassador continued. "You are not linked. You are alone in your heads, each of you isolated, each of you temporary. We do not understand how such creatures can function, how they can cooperate, how they can sacrifice themselves for those they will never meet." The drone's eyes, compound and alien, seemed to study Chen with new interest. "But we have decided that understanding is not necessary. Your people earned something from us, something we have never given to any species." It paused. "Respect, and perhaps in time something more." The hegemony sent a formal apology for what their official statement called past misunderstandings and unfortunate conflicts. They offered trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and a promise to never again allow their ships to threaten human territory. The Morphic Collective said nothing, but their ships no longer approached human borders. Their spies no longer infiltrated human colonies. They watched from a distance, silent and thoughtful, as if reconsidering everything they believed about the small pink creatures who had built an empire. Ketharin did not live to see any of this. The old Valorian had died 3 days after the resonance activated. His final hours were peaceful. Human doctors had kept him comfortable, and human nurses had sat with him as his light faded. His last words were recorded and preserved. "I crossed human space knowing I would never return," he had said. "I thought I was coming to die among monsters, the species that had burned fleets and shattered empires, the species that taught the galaxy to fear. I expected cruelty. I expected to be used and discarded." His cracked face had moved in what might have been a smile. "Instead, I found something I had not believed existed. A people who would sacrifice their own to save strangers. A people who asked nothing in return for their gift except the chance to give it. I was wrong about humanity. The galaxy was wrong." He had looked at the nurses beside him, at their kind faces and gentle hands. "You are not monsters. You are guardians. And the silence, ancient as it is, has never faced anything like you." A memorial was built on a small moon at the edge of human space. Officially, it commemorated those who served in defense of humanity during the spatial disturbance crisis. The names carved into its surface meant nothing to most visitors. They were fake names, cover identities assigned to people who had officially never existed. But those who knew the truth visited often. Admiral Chen came once a year on the anniversary of the mission's completion. She stood before the wall of names and remembered each face. Marcus Cole, Yuki Tanaka, O'Brien, Hayes, Rodriguez, Reyes, all of them, every single one. Ilara Vance came too. She had been promoted to admiral herself now, commanding the very station where the story had begun. She had watched Ketharin die. She had read his final words. She had never forgotten the look in his eyes when he handed her that crystal. On the 5th anniversary, Ilara stood before the memorial as the sun set behind her. The stars were coming out, distant and cold, scattered across the darkness like diamonds on black cloth. Somewhere out there the silence waited. It had been pushed back but not destroyed. The archives were clear on this point. It would wait and watch and learn. And someday, perhaps centuries from now, it would try again. But humanity would be ready. The Resonance Network was only the beginning. Scientists across human space were studying the archives, looking for other secrets, other weapons, other tools that might be used when the darkness returned. And they were not working alone. The Kreth had offered their own researchers. The hegemony had shared their own ancient records. Even the Morphics had sent encrypted packets of data, fragments of knowledge about the silence that their species had gathered over millions of years. The galaxy was coming together, slowly, painfully, with old hatred still burning and old wounds still fresh. But it was happening, because humanity had shown what was possible, because a few hundred people had given their lives to save strangers who hated them. Ilara placed her hand on the cold stone of the memorial. She thought of Cole, of his crew, of all the ships that had flown into darkness and never returned. "No one crosses human space unasked," she whispered. The words hung in the air like a prayer, like a promise. She smiled, her eyes reflecting the distant stars. Unless coming back was never the intention. The memorial stood in silence. The stars wheeled overhead, and somewhere in the vast darkness between galaxies, something ancient and patient turned its attention toward a small spiral arm where something new and strange had taken root. It had time, it had always had time. But for the first time in eons, it also had something else. Doubt. Humanity endured, the watch continued, and the galaxy for the moment was safe. The story was not over. Stories like this never really end. But this chapter was complete, written in sacrifice and sealed in starlight. Those who came after would add their own pages, face their own challenges, make their own choices. They would not face them alone. That was the gift the fleet of the willing had given. Not just survival, not just time, but proof that even in the coldest reaches of space, even against enemies beyond comprehension, there was one truth that could never be erased. Some things were worth dying for, and humanity would always find people willing to prove it.